So Lynn Fry is our third speaker. She's from New Zealand and now living in the UK. She's a bridge teacher and a psychologist. And interestingly for us, she draws on her psychology background to bring useful insights to her teaching. Thanks, Lynn.
Right, so my talk is about students who cause concern in bridge classes. I have to say that unlike my students are at the other end of the bridge learning spectrum. They're pretty much all people who have newly retired. And I find that there's an enormous interest among that group to really get going. People who've had very successful careers and who are now ready to move on and do something else challenging. Now, bridges, excuse me, bridge is a difficult game to learn. Anyone who's taught students from the start will appreciate that they're unlikely to be even moderate players in the first couple of years. This means that we have to keep their interest and motivation high over a long period. And the way to do this is simple. Keep them feeling they're making progress and they're looking forward to a couple of hours of fun in your lessons. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about a few characters who cause concern. At the same time, I'm going to talk to you about some ways of dealing with them. Now, the first one is the latecomer. I find it very hard to be tolerant of repeat offenders here. I find that it's most annoying when someone disrupts your lesson when you're in full flow. So what I do is I discourage people from coming late by always starting my lessons right on time. I fit them into a group when I have time, and I might give a brief summary of what we're studying. Today we're working on a takeout double, that sort of thing. I would remind them that at some point that the lessons always start at 1 p.m. sharp. I would also let them know that I find it difficult to gather my thoughts and my lessons when I'm interrupted. I always arrive early at lessons to chat and to answer questions and make people feel welcome. This encourages everyone to be on time. Okay, now the next person to cause concern is the shrinking violet. Now, this is a person, I understand that this is not a universal term, but this is a person who sits quietly in your class, rarely speaking up and looking as if they might wilt if you ask them a question. Now, this person needs their confidence built so they can gain the full benefit of your lesson. They should never be criticized publicly and should have the sandwich approach. Now, this is a British sandwich, okay, with bread on each side and filling in the middle. So the bread at the top is praise. You start with praise. And you might say, that's a really useful thing to bring up. I'm glad you mentioned that. Then you put them right. We don't overcall 2 hearts with only 4 of them. And you finish with more bread, another positive comment. It's good to talk about it, though. I'm sure others have had similar thoughts. You might also think about giving them the next lesson handout in advance so they feel confident. So suppose you're doing week 2's, the following lesson, give them that lesson handout in advance so they've had a chance to think about it and without pressure and anxiety. The shrinking violet may also see you as a bold, confident, capable, scary person. And but they also need to see you as someone who cares about their progress and is interested in their opinion. Try to talk to them after the lesson. Ask how they're getting on. Have they been playing outside of lessons? Do they go to the local club? Just chat to them generally about their bridge, how they're enjoying it, the rest of it. Okay, the next one is the bully. I had one student who was very rude to his wife. She didn't seem to pay any attention to this, but others at the table were offended and embarrassed and refused to sit with them. I took him aside and mentioned that what he was saying upset other people. He was annoyed at my intervention and said that his wife didn't mind. I appeared to agree with him by saying that might be the case, but reiterated that other people were concerned. He did calm down, but his wife later came to me and said that it didn't bother her. In your lessons, it's an idea to seat these people apart. And although they may well be a pair in life as well as in bridge, and they may actually choose to play with each other, don't ask. I asked him to tone down his remarks as others felt uncomfortable. He was unhappy, but he did modify his behaviour when I was around. In Law 74, however, is crucial to the enjoyment of bridge, and it's often overlooked. It says that a player should carefully avoid any remark which might cause annoyance or embarrassment to another player or might interfere with their enjoyment of the game. I had one partner of international standard who frequently made angry or demeaning remarks to me at the table. When I pointed out to him that he was actually breaking the laws of bridge, he was very shocked. Okay, the know-all. These people are a real problem, and they're also common in classes. While you're busy at another table, they're also busy telling your students what they should be doing. Unfortunately, this advice is frequently inaccurate. Now, students often have an idea of the pecking order in classes. They know who the stronger players are. This is often incorrect. The supposedly stronger players are often those who are most confident and speak out. On the whole, they need to be discouraged from offering advice, and they're particularly harmful to shrinking violets, and they should be, if possible, seated at a different table. Put them with those who have a better idea, who know what they're doing and are assertive, as they're less likely to be undermined by the know-all. In my classes, I don't want the know-all to feel undermined. So when I come to a table and things have gone wrong and they all say, yes, but Duncan said, I usually make a joke and say, but I'm the teacher. Just call out and I'll come and see you through the puzzle. And I might take the know-all aside at the end of the lesson and put them right and suggest ways in which they can improve their understanding. But I wouldn't do this in front of the group. The next one is the challenger. The other students see this person as someone who adds fun to the lesson because they argue back with the teacher. I was in a lesson this week given by another teacher, and he was teaching a lesson on week 2s. And one of the students said, yes, but I play rubber bridge, and I'm sure when you're playing for money, it's better to play strong 2s. The teacher was quite shocked, but he did respond to it. And we moved on to the lesson on week 2s. But I like having the student in my classes. It keeps me on my toes. We can have a discussion of the pros and cons of the situation. They have ideas and attitude. Sometimes they hog the limelight. In this case, I might take them aside and go through the issues they raise, or I might make a point of talking to them after the lesson. A perennial challenger in one of my classes died recently. And at his funeral, the obituary mentioned that he would always argue with the bridge teacher. I teach at a golf club where we all play the same system: weak no trump, 4-card majors, reverse attitude, standard count. A number of the members regularly watch lessons online, which they enjoy. But this teacher does a number of things differently to us. And I often get the complaint, but my other teacher says. For example, the online teacher teaches high encourage, low discourage. And I explained that we teach low like for a number of reasons, one of which is that everyone else plays the same method, and we think that it's a more effective way of signaling and discarding. But we talk about the pros and cons of different ways of doing things, and I let them make up their own minds. So if they want to play high encourage, they can, but they need to know that the rest of the club, and in fact most of the rest of the world, is playing low like. The next person is the questioner. I welcome these people as it shows that they're passionate about the game and often thinking about things that go wrong. The problem is that they're often vague about what went wrong. I had this hand, I had 5 spades, or was it 4? I had the ace. Oh no, maybe it was the king queen. Now, to cope with this, I have a form which they fill in at the time. They can fill in the whole hand, or these days they can take a photo on their mobile phone and show it to me later. Or they can take a screenshot if they're playing online. And that often works well. whoops, excuse me. Okay. If they raise interesting issues, and if they are particularly interesting, I copy it and either put it online or put it on a whiteboard at the end and show for the whole class to admire. If they're asking about the notes I hand out, I'm especially pleased, as it shows that they're working after my lessons. I hand out the lessons, okay, it's a lesson on take out doubles, and the following week they come along to me with a whole load of stuff underlined. And I find this is really helpful because it points out to you aspects of the game which may not have been clear to the class as a whole. And I'll often give a quick revision at the start of the lesson just to check that everyone has understood the point. Now, the next person is the outcast. In my class, I have a man who's very deaf and who needs extra explanations, and a woman who was once a powerful professional, but who now has Alzheimer's. Other class members like them. They've known them for a long time. They want to be helpful, but they don't really want to have them as their partner, as they're a lot of work when they want to be working on other things. I find the best thing is to move them about so everyone has a turn playing with them, or encourage them to bring a partner of their own. And if it's necessary for me to make up a table, I always play with them. I'm not going to discourage them from coming to lessons, as their options in life are closing down, and if they love bridge, they should be there. A more problematic outcast at the table is the bully or the know-all, and some of my pupils have refused to sit at a table with these two. They don't even like being paired together, as they both know best. I try to seat them at a table, often the same table, with more competent players who can stand up for themselves and will speak up if there's a dispute, and they must be kept well away from shrinking violets. The next person is the audience member. This person is a regular class member who interacts and shows enthusiasm, but who never plays bridge at any other time. In my club, there are a group of women who play every Wednesday afternoon, and my beginners could have joined in, but the bridge, as they're all members of the same golf club, but the bridge players gave a confident, exclusive feel to their afternoon. I wanted my beginners to break into this group, whose bridge ability was actually significantly lower than they thought it was. So I approached individual members of the Wednesday group and asked if they would play with my beginners just one time to get them involved. This was amazingly successful. I picked the ringleaders, by the way. I picked the people who were most likely to be disparaging about beginners. I stressed how important it was to be kind to my beginners and to make sure they had a good time. In the end, everyone had a good time. The Wednesday numbers swelled. They moved from about 3 tables on a Wednesday to 5 or 6, and the beginners are now fully part of the group. For others who are happy to be part of an audience, I arrange partners for them and quietly push them off to a local gentle duplicate. I push them to sign up for our club league and local gentle teams competitions. I also play with them myself. This has a double benefit, as I learn what their weaknesses are and how to direct my lessons. And they also do well because they get a reasonable score in the duplicate, and that makes them feel happier. But getting willing non-players started playing is a whole big subject, and I'm sure there's probably room for a whole lesson about it. There's another type of audience member, and this is the lesson junkie. Just loves to come along and be entertained for a couple of hours by you. Flattering, but not really bridge. Nice to have them make up the numbers, let them stay. Now, the one who just doesn't get it. This is the sort of person who says, what do you mean I don't lead fourth from King, Queen, Jack, 6? Okay. And yesterday in my class, Tanya led the 3 of diamonds against 3 no trumps. Dummy had the 2. I asked one of the other students, Mary, how many diamonds Tanya held. She suggested 5. I asked the others, who looked blank. Then I asked Tanya, who pointed to the 2 and dummy. It said, I led the 3. There's the 2. I must have 4. I made a big fuss of her, told her she was the star of the table, and she beamed. You're never too old to have a bit of flattering praise, by the way. This example shows a number of issues. Things which look routine to teachers often need a great deal of reinforcement for students. Also, I thought the woman I asked, who had played bridge for at least 50 years, would know it, but I'd overlooked the fact that she plays bridge with just a few simple rules and always will play like that. Even though we talk in every lesson about the importance of analysing the lead, she doesn't do it and probably never will. The other issue is that sometimes when you ask a direct question of those who probably know the answer, sometimes their mind just goes blank and they can't think what to say. Despite the fact that Mary will never improve her bridge, she loves the game, plays often with her friends, and is an asset at the table. People like her. I try to reinforce the things that she does right and to ensure that she feels good. So as I'm wandering around the class, I might say, "Nice bid, Mary," or "I like the way you're taking time to plan the play of this hand," or "You picked a great lead there." Okay, the last problem is a really serious one, and this is when the whole class fails to get it. And I'm afraid this is a teaching failure. I recently spent 10 weeks teaching the EBU Develop Your Defence course, which is designed for students in their second and third year of learning bridge. I gave them a booklet to follow the lessons together with all the hands and explanations. And at the end of 10 weeks, I gave them a selection of hands from the lessons, and they all got almost all the hands wrong. Oh dear. What went wrong? A few things. I should have checked more frequently that they were reading the notes and working on the points made in the lessons. I was wrong to assume that because they were coming to lessons, they would do some work outside the lessons. A common misbelief is that simply coming to a lesson is going to be enough to improve your bridge. Next, I wonder what their motivation was. I think they all wanted to get better, but their expectations exceeded what was actually going to happen in practice. My teaching approach. Now, I've been using a technique called Errorless Learning. In other words, I stopped them making a mistake before they made it. So, for example, the hand, you've got to either play for a 3-3 break or take a finesse. And I can see them starting to play for the 3-3 break. So I might say to them, "Hang on a minute. What's the odds of getting a 3-3 break?" Okay, 30-odd%. What's the odds of the finesse working? 50%. What do you really want to do? Oh, right. Yes, I should have taken the finesse. Now, that's what I had been doing. I think I was wrong. I think I should have been using a mild punishment. I should let them go wrong and suffer the mild punishment of having the hand collapse around them. Now, I saw that tonight there's Ulrich is talking about exactly this issue. And I think that you've got to hold back, even though your every instinct says, no, don't do that. You need to hold back and let them make mistakes. I should have also arranged some special lessons. I should have checked more frequently. What I did do was I discussed it all with another teacher, and that way I got sympathy and support. Okay, a few general rules. In conclusion, here are a few of my tips for making bridge students feel special. Firstly, I welcome them by name and a smile. I ask after their bridge in the preceding week and if they've had any fun games. I encourage them to bring me hands they found challenging, and we have a laugh about what their partners and the opposition did to them. I have some silly rules to cover the most basic bridge errors. We have a bar at the club, and anyone who overcalls in a 4-card suit, or especially underleads an ace against a suit contract, has to go straight to the bar and buy me a gin and tonic, even if it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I've collected about 3 times now, and I warn newcomers before they start, and this usually leads to a ripple of laughter around the class. I make the explanation at the beginning short, never more than about 10 minutes, because you don't want to overwhelm them or have them get bored. Every now and again, I have supervised practice where they can play hands and put everything they've learned into practice in real situations. These are popular. And I also learn the weaknesses which require teaching. I try to make people feel good all the time. If someone does something really good, I praise them to the whole class. I tell them they're player of the week or my star pupil. Sometimes I give them credit on the class notice board as well. I watch out particularly for those who are nervous or who lack confidence, and I give them a lot of quiet support and reassurance. I don't hesitate to put students right when they've made a mistake, but I usually give encouragement together with the comment. Some things are particularly hard for students. I might repeat a tricky lesson, and this time I give out gold stars for everyone who plays a hand correctly for the right reason. They've all thought this was great fun, even though they're in their 50s and 60s, or at least. About a month later, this applied to a lesson on doing discards and signals properly. And this, I find, is a particularly difficult concept for my students anyway. So I gave them the lesson. I gave them all a gold star if they got it right. A month later, I repeated the lesson, and this time I handed out bridge pencils for those who got it right. Now, it might sound trivial, but these adults loved the idea of stars and pencils. It's all in the way you do it. I always have a handout so they can revise in the following week. I'm not sure how many read these handouts, but I know that most of them at least file them away and can look at them later. 2 or 3 will often discuss the handout with me the following week, and they have a permanent record that they can refer back to at any stage. I look out for those who find the lessons difficult, and I'll take them aside and have a quiet word, perhaps going through the handout with them. I have a small bridge library, and I might suggest that they would find a particular book helpful. I have a plan for what I want to teach, but I also ask the class members for suggestions about what they'd actually like to learn. And that makes them feel involved in the lessons and to feel that they're addressing their personal needs. I recently had a request that for people, what do we do? How do we overcall a week 2? Now, God knows how many times I've taught that particular lesson, but they all felt that was something that they would like to repeat, so I did. I organise tournaments for them outside the lessons. We have a Swiss pairs competition at the club in which they play in their own homes, and it has handicapping. So in my classes, my students get a big handicap, which enable them to compete against the stronger players. We play Chicago, and my husband and I recently, my husband's a very good player, played against 2 of the weaker players. We had to give them over 2,000 point start so that they were on a level playing field with us. I have a notice board, which I keep up to date with lots of information, jokes, bridge hints, stories. I sometimes play with students at the local duplicate so they can see this is not as terrifying as they think it will be. And after the lessons, we often sit around and have a drink and a chat, sometimes about the lesson or just gossiping, and it all ends on a relaxing note. So finally, I'll say, remember this. Your students are with you because they want entertainment. This is their leisure time. They choose to be with you when they could easily choose something else. Make sure they stick with you until they become as devoted to the game as you are. And that's my lesson. That's my words for today.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I'd like to ask you 3 questions. How do you politely tell someone to change seats?
Change seats?
Yeah, like when you want someone to move from one chair to the other, because you don't want those people, that particular clique, to stay with each other.
I direct them as they come in.
Okay.
So I know people who want to always play with someone else. That's fine. And I'll say, right, you go to table 1. And then the bully comes along and I say, right, well, you can make up a table there, number 3, please. I'm pretty directive, really.
Okay. Next question from Michael is, with that incident where you covered the EBU curriculum or the forgetting, do you think it was because they couldn't remember the knowledge, or was it because they couldn't use it? Do you think it?
Oh, that's a good question. They certainly had opportunities to use it because they all play together quite a lot. Very few of them play outside of the golf club. So a lot of them play online. I think the fault was mine. I think I should have checked more often that they were actually reading the handouts and working. I should have checked that their motivation was the same as mine. I expected them to get better, but they didn't put the work in, really.